fellows and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Greg, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Tuesday, December 8th, 2015. Yep. So I know yesterday they had the 74th, 74th anniversary ceremony on the Pearl Harbor attacks, which many of the troops were slaughtered by an attack by Japanese army. And you always gotta give them homage, the ones who passed and are alive. And I know I did a show on it last year. It was about how Franklin Roosevelt had knowledge about the attacks and did not forewarn his colleagues or comrades. And even plus, today is the second anniversary of my show. I did the first one on December 8th, 2013. It was the Bill of Rights. And I was a little bit gun-shy or talk shy. I didn't have a certain equipment at the time. But now things are like beefing up compared way back when. So I'm pretty happy about that. And I can thank everyone for following me, downloading, sharing the shows wherever you are. Thank you. Yeah, so I was mainly gonna be talking on a few topics and have some entertainment in the end. So yeah, well, I'd like to address first is Obama's speech at this Oval Office. Try to listen to it last Sunday and Sunday night, but had signal issues, so I watched it on YouTube, and I'm not really too keen. Another unmeritable politician that despises the U.S. Bill of Rights culture. That's how I see it. And a very good example of this came from the New American. Came out yesterday, to be exact. It's entitled, Obama Uses Speech on San Bernardino Shootings to Again Promote Gun Control. It's by Warren Mass. As it reads here, in a rare Oval Office speech on December 6th, President Obama led off by addressing the tragic shootings in San Bernardino on December 2nd that took 14 lives, as he did in his weekly address the previous day, once again called for more gun control. On December 6th, he said that the San Bernardino shootings were another tragic reminder that here in America it's way too easy for dangerous people to get their hands on a gun. In his Oval Office address, he repeated his mantra, we also need to make it hard for people to buy powerful assault weapons like the ones they were used in San Bernardino. San Bernardino. Okay, I mispronounced that. As he frequently does, Obama called his proposed gun control gun safety measures. Before getting into gun control, Obama touched on several aspects of terrorism, even as he admitted that there was no evidence that San Bernardino killers were directed by terrorist organizations overseas, or what they were part of a broader conspiracy here at home. Starting with the observation that our nation has been at war with terrorists since Al-Qaeda killed nearly 3,000 Americans on September 11th. Obama moved closer to present by stating that as our nation has become better at stopping terrorist attacks on the magnitude of 9/11, the terrorists have evolved into a new phase. Less complicated acts of violence like the mass shootings that are all too common in our society. Talk about exploitation. Obama quickly jumped into the war against ISIS, using the preferred government acronym ISIL, which de-emphasizes Syria, the place where the Obama administration's support for the anti-Assad rebels helped turn into ISIS into a major threat. In outlining his anti-terrorism strategy, Obama listed 4 steps in his plan to hunt down and destroy the very terrorists his own interventionist foreign policy in Syria helped create it. The first two of these steps consist of military operations such as airstrikes and providing training and equipment to tens of thousands of Iraqis and Syrian forces fighting ISIS on the ground, and includes sending U.S. Special Operations Forces. The second two steps involve intelligence sharing and diplomacy. Obama then moved his anti-terrorism war from overseas to the home front. It is interesting that during our nation's long history, even during two world wars against major military powers such as Germany and Japan, and a long Cold War against the Soviet Union, all of which had large and extensive espionage networks, no domestic terrorist attacks of the size of 9/11 have occurred. It was only after our nation began its interventionist foreign policy in the Middle East that sufficient blowback was created to fuel those attacks. One of Obama's proposals to protect us from terrorist attacks domestically actually makes sense. We should be put in place stronger screening for those who come to America without a visa so they can take a hard look at whether they've traveled to war zones. However, the others amount to nothing more than infringements on the liberties of law-abiding Americans, especially the right to keep and bear arms as guaranteed by the Second Amendment. First of these is Congress should act to make sure no one on the fly list is able to buy a gun. Can we say congressional lateral decision, no due process? Hopefully everyone's understanding where I'm coming from. And the second is we need to make it hard for people to buy powerful assault weapons like the ones they use in San Bernardino. AR-15s, right? In response to the presidential address, a well-known father and son political duo each made statements expressing serious reservations. Presidential candidate and Senator Rand Paul, from Republican from Kentucky, spoke out against what he called Obama's outrageous quest to turn a necessary discussion on terrorism and national security into an unnecessary and ineffective gun control debate. Concerning gun control, Paul said, "Let's be clear, disarming more law-abiding citizens will not stop mass murderers and terrorists. We should be advocating for more concealed carry ability for law-abiding Americans and to end an unconstitutional gun-free zones." Paul also called for better border security, noting, "We must fully examine and reform our border security, including refugee and visa programs." While the president paid lip service to his fight, he plans to keep the failed current rules in place and allow tens of thousands of refugees to enter our country. Paul also criticized the interventionist foreign policy, though which the Obama administration actually helped ISIS come to power by helping the anti-Assad rebels in Syria, some of whom were actually allies of ISIS. We must stop arming and training allies of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. We should not double down on this failed and dangerous policy that the president called for tonight. Paul's father, former representative presidential candidate Ron Paul from Texas, Republican to be exact, also had plenty to say about the president's address. The elder Paul also addressed Obama's gun control protocol proposal. Concerning the never-ending interventionist foreign policy that has spanned several presidential administrations, the elder Paul said, "Sadly, I don't see much to be gained from the President Obama's speech from last night on gun control and ISIS. We're now apparently involved in a war that both Republicans and Democrats don't see an end to. Perpetual war is a surefire prescription for government to continue to erode and take away our liberties." And, as might be expected, Paul pointed out what is obvious to every constitutionalist, the Obama war on the Second Amendment. The major liberty that President Obama attacked last night in a person's right to defend himself with a gun. The president was slightly deceitful when he said the following words: "What can be the argument for allowing a terrorist suspect to buy a semi-automatic weapon? He argued that a person on the no-fly list should be banned from buying a gun." Wow. Barry Soetoro, thank you for that rhetoric, because Mao Tse-tung and Pol Pot will be extremely proud. And add Idi Amin Dada to the list. However, just think of all the errors that are on the government's no-fly list that aren't just a couple of dozen mistakes, but probably thousands of people that are erroneously on the list. There is a way to break free from the never-ending cycle of inflaming the world, inciting terrorist blowback, and suspending the Bill of Rights to protect us from terrorists. It consists of the following: the advice of our wise founders to mind our own business, as John Quincy Adams wrote in 1821. America goes not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. She is the well-wisher to the freedom and independence of all. She is a champion and vindicator only of her own. Thomas Jefferson wore a short and simple defense of the right to keep and bear arms in a draft for the Virginia Constitution in 1776. No free man shall be debarred the use of arms. As for why this right is so important, Noah Webster wrote an examination of the leading principles of the federal Constitution. It's in Philadelphia, 1787. Before a standing army can rule, the people must be disarmed, as they are in almost every kingdom in Europe oppressive. Obama has an entirely different philosophy, however. It is spending countless energy and lives going abroad in search of monsters to destroy while disarming the people at home. It's very self-explanatory, my friends. Barack Obama is just another bend-over Bob to the New World Order. A patsy, a yes boy, or a global Uncle Tom. And I say that ethically. We all know people are realizing that he is just another puppet that's being told what to say, what to do, how to act, when to take a dump, when to have sex, etc. I'm saying those couple of statements I made, allegedly. And I'm not going to use the word Muslim with Barack Obama, because a lot of the people who are Muslims in the world can't even stand this teleprompting reading stooge. Instead of saying yes we can, it should say yes he scammed. That's how you look at this man. So I am going to add the video on here as well on his speech. It is laughable and use it for entertainment purposes, and I'm going to be leaving a link here from the JPFO, which is entitled 2A Today for the USA. And you can see it yourself. It's really great information, very powerful stuff. It tells you what well-regulated militia means. It's not the National Guard. I know some folks on Facebook try to use that well-regulated militia. You know what? You're not going to convince me. When I send something, you guys get offended, but you know what? Who cares? I'm just going to... Oh, sorry about that. Add that link to it as well, so all you folks can see it. Good stuff. That's all I have to say. Real good stuff. So definitely check it out. You know, you won't be disappointed. Let me just see here. Looks like this donut one. It's gonna check this out. Okay, that's pretty good. But, you know, it's just one of those things, my friends. Oh, that's a shame. I gotta do a quick remodification. So stick around. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Yeah, so I took care of that. So I'm going to add the addition the 2A today for the USA or the JPFO video. I think I may have done it before on my past archives, but I'm going to add this as well. It gives you real great clarification, and the organization used for the preservation of firearms ownership did a lot of great research too. So, and I tell you one thing, I use that to people that try to get me on tougher gun laws and restrictions and so forth. I just give that ammunition. I drive these individuals crazy, and you should do the same thing. No compromises. Destroy, which is the cancer of gun control. It's what President Obama and his lackeys don't want you to do. So, enough of that. And it was so interesting because they believe that they don't want us to be purchasing certain firearms, and they want to use due process. If you're on a no-fly list, you can't own a firearm. That's what his Gonzo master, I call Rahm Emanuel, talked about it. You got everyone met of all these her conformist walking anti-McCullough applauding, yay! I want to bend over for the state, because that's all they want them to do. So, but that's one thing you have to look at. And what's so funny about the sign up? We're the bad guys. Well, it's from WGBH in Boston, and it talks about here from Blacklisted News. They shared this. And this is came out a couple days ago. It's called 72 Department of Homeland Security employees on terrorist watch list. 95% failure to find weapons at airports. And this was here. It says here, back in August, we did an investigation. The Inspector General did of the Department of Homeland Security, and they had 72 individuals that were on the terrorist watch list that were actually working at the Department of Homeland Security. The director had to resign because of that. Then we went further and did an 8-airport investigation. We had staffers going to 8 different airports to test the Department of Homeland Security screening process at major airports. They had a 95% failure rate. We had folks. This was a testing exercise, so we had folks going in there with guns on their ankles and other weapons on their persons, and there was 95% failure notice. So this is so funny. They saying that we're the bad people. They can't trust us, but they want you to trust Homeland Security. And look what they can't do. They can't even wipe their own behinds. And they're giving rank and file poor training, lack of skills, and being non-methodical. And it's costing the United States taxpayer tons of money. This is why I've been saying this for all these years. We have to terminate Homeland Security because they are inefficient, and I consider them null and void. I was even very critical when they hired Tom Ridge, who was at the time was the Pennsylvania governor, to be the Secretary of Homeland Security. So, and even he admitted that some of the stuff that happened is to have so that he could have George W. Bush be in control. And like we all know, that Tom Ridge was only another lapdog, but at least the man had a conscience. So hey, when you gotta have a 95% failure rate and you're spending your tax dollars, it's called another example of Washington waste. So you know what? Let's get rid of Homeland Security once and for all. Will save us a lot more and stop being an empire. Like I said before, the war on terror is a conflagration with ourselves. And this is the one here. Actually came from Reuters. Came out yesterday. And it was on Business Insider. It's entitled, Families of Sandy Hook Victims Are Lashing Out at an AR-15 manufacturer for advertising the gun's capacity to inflict mass casualties. Written by Barbara Goldberg. It says here, the AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, a common link in many U.S. mass killings, such as last week's California massacre, is recklessly marketed for its capacity to inflict mass casualties. Families of the Connecticut elementary school victims said on Monday. In an opinion piece published in USA Today relative to some 26 children and staff killed in the 2012 mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School, lashed out at the manufacturer of some AR-15 rifles, a firearm conglomerate known as Remington Outdoor. What should surprise and horrify us is that Remington actively promotes the AR-15's capacity to inflict mass casualties, Sandy Hook families wrote in the opinion piece. In an era where mass shooters are often equipped with fatigues, vests, and other combat gear, this type of marketing is not only unethical, it's also reckless, the piece said. It was written by families of victims Benjamin Wheeler, Dylan Hockley, and Noah Posner, all age 6, Daniel Barden, 7, Victoria Soto, 27, under the byline Sandy Hook families. Last week, a married couple opened fire with AR-15s at a holiday party in San Bernardino, killing 14 people, and a similar weapon used to be killed by the killer at Sandy Hook. The AR-15 was also used by shooters at an Oregon college in October, where 9 people died, and an Aurora, Colorado movie theater, where 12 people died in 2012. I have a question for you clowns. What do they all have in common? They occurred in where? Firearm-free zones. So when you gonna get your facts straight? I will continue on here. In a response to the Sandy Hook slayings, the family said George Colatides, who was the chief executive of Remington Outdoors, said it's very easy to blame an inanimated object. Any kind of instrument in the wrong hands can be put to evil use. And of course, you got a photo of Barack Obama with his crocodile tears. After the school Sandy Hook massacre, the Obama administration tried but failed to enact new gun control measures. In the opinion piece on Monday, the Sandy Hook families noted that U.S. unwillingness and an inability to control guns put a harsh spotlight on Remington's market push for its assault rifle. Extolling a weapon's destructive potential might actually attract the wrong hands, the family said. In August, Walmart, the world's largest retailer by revenue, said it would stop selling AR-15 and other semi-automatic rifles because of sluggish demand, and would concentrate on other hunting and sportsman firearms. The question I have with the families of Sandy Hook is, can you explain to everyone why, accordance with FBI.org under Uniform Crime Reports, in the year 2012, under the state of Connecticut, Newton, where Sandy Hook Elementary School is, or was, has 0 murders. You look it down, it goes murder and non-negligent manslaughter. Newton has 0 murders. Crime's really low in other places. But can they explain why? From a town that has 27,904, I think it is, right? Yeah. It only had 0 murders. And of course, many other people believe that the whole thing's a hoax, based on the documentation and videos, and of course that FEMA drill, those are smoking guns. This includes the thing in San Bernardino as well. So I'm real convinced, based on the information I've read and examined, the families of Sandy Hook are just hired folks from above higher ups, and plus They don't want you to know about those 0 murders in Newton, Connecticut. So I'm gonna definitely add that link with this article. You can make your own judgment. And don't get me wrong, everything has to have merit. And this right here, it does. And this is why I always question with Sandy Hook after reading everything. These folks that are still calling out Remington are unmeritable stooges. That's all I gotta say. Next one came from The Intercept, came out like early yesterday. This one's entitled Obama Hints at Renewed Pressure on Encryption. Clinton waves off First Amendment. It's by Dan Frumkin. As we see, President Obama and Hillary Clinton made statements on Sunday indicating that the post-San Bernardino focus on rooting out radicalized individuals is going to lead to heightened pressure on social media sites and tech companies that provide unbreakable end-to-end encryption. In his Oval Office speech on Saturday night about the fight against ISIS, President Obama devoted one line is free speech to the topic. I will urge high-tech law enforcement leaders to make it harder for terrorists to use technology to escape from justice, he said. Meanwhile, Clinton, the Democratic presidential frontrunner, gave a talk at the Brookings Institution where she urged tech companies to deny ISIS online space and wave away concerns about the First Amendment issues. We're going to have more support from our friends in technology world to deny online space, just as we have to destroy ISIS would be caliphate. We have to deny them online space, she said. And this is complicated. You're going to hear all of the unusual complaints, freedom of speech, and etc. etc. But if we truly are in a war against terrorism, we are truly looking for ways to shut off their funding, shut off their flow of foreign fighters, then we've got to shut down the means of communicating. It is more complicated with some of those they do in encrypted apps, and I'm well aware of that. That requires even more thinking about how to do it. Could we say compromise, tyranny, spying on the American people again, enhance it? Come on, let's sing it. God bless the police state. Idi Amin would be proud. Okay, I will proceed. A senior administration official told Reuters that the White House intends to talk to tech companies in the coming days about developing a clearer understanding of when we believe social media is being used actively and operationally to promote terrorism. Major social media sites are already deeply engaged in combating online propaganda and recruitment by Islamic militants. But Obama's comments were so clearly related to end-to-end encryption, once a rare but now increasingly common method that assures people that anyone intercepting their communications will simply see a series of seemingly random characters. Significantly, even the best encryption does not preclude law enforcement or other actors from accessing those communications by, get the hiccups here, hacking target devices, something that's particularly easy for organizations like the FBI or NSA. In his comments, Obama was echoing statements by FBI Director James Comey, who is an administration chief advocate for finding a way to give law enforcement some sort of special doorway into encrypted communications that does not unduly jeopardize the security of those communications. Oh yeah. I'll continue on. The tech industry, however, along with experts and privacy researchers, have been adamant that no such way exists. Any backdoor for law enforcement use could inviolably be abused by bad actors as well, as they said. A Washington Post article in September reports that Obama had decided not to push for legislation that would require an encryption backdoor, But the article is also quoted in an email from the intelligence community's top lawyer, Robert S. Litt, in which he told colleagues that congressional support for any encryption legislation could turn in an event of a terrorist attack or criminal event where strong encryption can be shown to have hindered law enforcement. Clinton, meanwhile, said that what we see right now, I think, is just the beginning of direct attacks and self-radicalization that leads to attacks that we think happened in San Bernardino. And we're going to ask our technology companies, help us on this. The threat from radical jihadism has metastasized and become more complex and challenging, she said. It is a nexus of terrorism and technology, and we have a lot of work to do to end it. San Bernardino shootings are also being cited by some Republicans, including presidential candidate Senator Marco Rubio, as a reason to reinstate the warrantless bulk collection of domestic telephone data. The one program that was shut down by Congress after whistleblower Eric Edward Snowden revealed a massive secret surveillance dragnet. Well, congratulations there, Senator Rubio. Fidel Castro will be extremely proud of you. An Associated Press story on Saturday added fuel to the fire when it claimed that, as a result of the shutdown, government could no longer access historical call records by the San Bernardino couple. But as Empty Wheel blogger Marcy Wheeler amply explained, the FBI has plenty of other ways of getting information. Several analyses of Obama's comments present themselves. One, hey, like Kami, actually believes there is a magic pony solution to the encryption dilemma that the brightest technological minds in the world have simply failed to come up with yet. Two, hey, like Kami, simply ramping up pressure on tech companies in an attempt to slow down the spread of end-to-end encryption, thereby extending what has been a golden age of surveillance. Three, it was just a line in the speech. After I tweeted Obama's comments on Sunday night, Zach Whitaker, who writes about cybersecurity and privacy for ZDNet, declared the start of the new crypto war. Crypto War 1 in the 1990s was resolved when government realized there really wasn't anything it can do to stop the spread of encryption in the long run. Here we go again, my friends. Another chapter of tyranny. Spy on everybody. They attacked us because of our freedoms. We gotta give up our freedom for security. Well, remember, if you do that, if you do that, you deserve neither. Ben Franklin, heed us on that. So this is why I'm always very leery when it comes to government. And I can repeat myself over and over again about in Latin means control the mind. And of course, Glamboy Rubio. That's all he is. The glamorous senator wants to start collecting data once again. And you want this man to be president? All these clowns, including the lame duck, Barry Soetoro, or Barack Obama. This is why I'll always tell everybody, you always gotta remain vigilant. And this is a good final one, which is an archive. It came out around September 14th, 2001. It's based on Black Tuesday. And it says here, Black Tuesday and the Passive America, a Bill of Rights culture is the only answer. And it says here, we must give up some of our freedoms to help combat terrorism. Look what happened right now, right? The predictable words and actions are the beginning spew from political, military, and law enforcement officials and their supporters. For safety, for security, for the greater good, they somberly tell us. We must comply with their agendas. To be protected from terrorism, we must submit to more restrictions on our ability to travel, our freedom for arbitrary searches, on the privacy of our communications, on our right to bear arms, on our ability to conduct business hidden from the prying eyes of government. Senator Judd Gregg, Republican of New Hampshire, has called a global prohibition on encryption products without backdoors for government surveillance. See, history's repeating itself. Travel regulators have banned knives on planes. Does this mean even pilots can't protect themselves and passengers against hijackers? ISPs who were reluctant to cooperate with the FBI invasive carnivore program are now rushing to comply. U.S. Senate has, in the wake of Black Tuesday, voted to increase the FBI's authority to tap phones of anyone suspected of terrorism. Suspected. Assumption, you would say. As we've seen by all these other random restrictions, we are all suspects in the eyes of the U.S. government. Perhaps most ominously of all, the Washington Post quoted House Democratic leader Richard Gephardt, Democrat from Missouri, as making the self-contradictory but entirely predictable statement. We're in a new world where we have to rebalance freedom and security. We can't take away people's civil liberties, but we're not going to have all openness and freedom we've had. Yeah, penile microphone to you there, Gephardt. There's a link for that too in the Washington Post. I don't know if it's still up there or not. The Post then went on to describe how every war crisis of the last 100 years has been used to increase government power, often in the most draconian way. Freelance supporters of the surveillance states are rushing to urge everyone to comply. One liberal talk show host responds to callers who complain about that Big Brother policies at airports were a problem. Big Brother is the only thing holding us together. That's the defense. He offered no evidence to show how Big Brother made us safe on Tuesday, September 11th. We must think free, not patriotically jerk our knees. Soon we may be at war, and as always at such times, we'll be expected to pull together, do what our leaders tell us is necessary, and sacrifice more freedom in the name of safety and security or patriotism. And as the reality of the day of horror seeps in, who doesn't feel an urge to strike back, to get behind our government, to show those murdering bastards they can't push Americans around, and to do whatever it takes to defend the greatest country on earth, even if that means sacrificing individual liberty to the cause? To the cause. Whatever happens from here and out, we need to remember that Big Brother is not holding us together, that he never can, and never will. We must remember that the kind of restrictions on the liberties of ordinary Americans that were totally ineffective in preventing the attacks on Tuesday, September 11, 2001, will not magically prevent future attacks merely because their severity is increased. What did all of Big Brother's efforts do prevent Tuesday's slaughter? The violations of freedom we've already been subjected to the name of safety, airport x-rays, ID checks, disarmament, body searches, and the whole gamut became a sick joke when the day arrived that we needed them to protect the country against the world's worst criminals. In fact, Daniel Pipes of the Wall Street Journal was quick to point out how government reliance on mass eavesdropping and tracking actually diverted resources for more effective anti-terrorism methods, such as actually studying and infiltrating genuine terrorist groups. Yet now, the government proposes a giant national effort to do more of the same, to impose more ineffective, wasteful, and oppressive mass surveillance and restrictions. New restrictions of the freedom of nonviolent people will do nothing to make America or the world safer. They make us less safe as well as less free. There are at least two reasons for this. The first is that more restrictions and more power placed in the hands of government will simply, in the long run, create more rage and therefore more desire to strike violently. As we also saw, some restrictions, like those that forbid armed citizens on planes, also make it hard for Americans to protect themselves and their country. The second is something we observe tragically through cell phone calls from our doomed hijacked planes. The fatal passivity and dependence that seem to be becoming the norm in American behavior. The passive, unthinking American. It appears that now that a handful of heroic passengers on one flight have having learned via telephone that the two other hijacked planes had already smashed into the World Trade Center, that decided not to allow themselves to be used as weapons of war. These passengers on United Flight 93 attacked the hijackers who were in control of the plane. Doomed in any case, they ended up dying in the woods in the fields of rural Pennsylvania rather than passively allowing their captors to get away with even more horrendous mass murder. We also know that on at least one other flight, American Airlines Flight 77, which smashed into the Pentagon, passenger Barbara Olson learned from her husband, U.S. Solicitor General Theodore Olson, of the World Trade Center catastrophe. During two separate calls, Mrs. Olson, a well-known author and conservative television commentator, asked her husband what the pilot standing next to her in the back of the plane should do. Picture that. Passengers and crew have been heard it, and note that word well heard it. To the back of the plane, even the pilot, the leader, and chief decision maker does nothing. Can't think what to do. Can't act. Instead of attempting to save their own lives and the lives of others on the ground. What do? They expect the federal government official to make the decision for them. The evidence says that these people didn't even feel empowered to defend their own lives without first asking the advice or permission of Washington, D.C. And why should we have expected otherwise? Americans have been told repeatedly never to resist crime, always to submit to any demand a thug makes of them, always go along for safety's sake, go along in order to avoid angering the criminal. We've been told always to submit as well to demand made by anyone who appears to be in charge. These people on Flight 77 and presumably on two of the other flights were apparently so paralyzed by their conditioning that they couldn't assert themselves even when the alternative was certain death. Even as pathetically disarmed as they were, they could have battered the hijackers with their briefcases, with their shoes and purses. They could have overwhelmed them with sheer numbers of bodies. They could have gouged at their eyes with fingers or car keys. Could have knocked them unconscious with luggage from the overhead racks. Could have them tripped them, stomped them, tied them with cords from audio headsets. But except on United Flight 93, they apparently did nothing. And so, 3 planes flew sure and true into the hearts of 3 American landmarks, slaughtering thousands. The only true security measure, a Bill of Rights culture. We must take back America as a country. We must make it free and independent again. No longer the would be ruler of its own people, and no longer playing at being the world's super cop. Only by doing that will earn the world's peace and respect. We must take our own individual lives and independent spirits back from would-be rulers and criminals as well. If we consent passively to give up more freedoms, even temporarily or as an emergency measure, we'll be doing the opposite. We'll be less safe, less free. To restore American freedom and personal courage, we must restore the Bill of Rights in our country and in our hearts and minds. If we understand the Bill of Rights, we'll understand what we're fighting for and why. If we let it slip away, what's left won't be worth fighting for. This means not merely having an intellectual or legal understanding of the Bill of Rights. This means not merely memorizing the Bill of Rights or teaching it to our children. This means understanding the concept of individual liberty that underlie the Bill of Rights, then living those concepts, breathing them, eating them, dreaming them, holding them as the most central values of our lives in the same place we hold our beliefs in the deity, or our dedication to our families, or to truth or justice. We must behave as free people, expect and encourage others to behave as free people, and have zero tolerance for anyone who abuses freedom or uses his authority to violate the Bill of Rights. If there was ever was a time in history to get behind the Bill of Rights and promote it, it is now. If we yield to this mushy thinking that the road to freedom and safety lies in giving up freedom and the Bill of Rights, then we might as well bow down in defeat right now. If we don't defend our rights, we'll have no rights. If we don't defend ourselves, our family members, our fellow citizens, and defend their freedoms, then our lives will be no more valuable than those of cattle and sheep. And the America we end up with won't be the America we thought we were fighting for. If you want to be a passive herd beast, obey whatever the authority of the movement, be that a bureaucrat or hijacker, tells you to do, to listen to their lies about safety and security. Obey, obey, obey. But if you truly want to combat terrorism or terror war, learn the Bill of Rights, teach the Bill of Rights, enforce the Bill of Rights with every action of your life. Fight back with the Bill of Rights. That was the Liberty Crew. In this time when that was late, one of them was from the late Aaron Zellman, and may his soul be forever free. I know I did put this out right about this last year on the 9/11 saga on one of my episodes on last year. And it's time to do it again. This is the reason why I want to read this to you folks out there, to my freedom-loving, sovereign-thinking individuals, because when you got bobbleheads such as President Barack Obama trying to give you a guilt trip, trying to tell you how things are done with his pathetic, kind eyes, which I could take a dump and find that more intriguing than his stare. This is what freedom is about. Him and Hillary Clinton and a few other lackeys, doesn't matter what party, Democrat, Republican, a lot of them think alike and smell the same, and their agendas are totally lame. That's why I support this, our Bill of Rights culture. And next week will be Bill of Rights Day, which is the 15th. Hopefully everyone out there in the United States and the world will share the Bill of Rights. Because if we don't do it, we'll be dumb, stagnant, and happy, and be part of the herd conformity. One thing I'm ecstatic with is a lot of people are waking up and learning this. It's not a majority, but a handful. And it's growing little by little by little. So this is why the Bill of Rights culture is the only answer. And that is it for that. And what I'm going to be doing next, play a little song by a gentleman named, I think his name is Dan Smith. Dan Joseph, excuse me. And it's on YouTube. I did download it. Entertaining song. I dedicate this to all the cronies, including our so-called Lord and Savior, Barack, the teleprompting reading Obama. Called the Gun Control Song. And I hope you enjoy it. Check it out.
The United States of America is the one advanced nation on earth in which we do not have sufficient common sense gun safety laws even in the face of repeated mass killings. Well, this is something we should politicize.
Come out, Obama, and lecture us now. There's been another mass shooting in another small town. Politicize it while the blood is still fresh on the ground. So start pounding that podium and give that same old speech that you always give, pushing the same old liberal anti-gun narrative. But you can be 100% positive that when a crazy person shoots someone, you know Obama's gonna blame the gun. That's what he does, and he always blames the gun. He always blames the gun. You tell us new regulations are good for us all, because we all know criminals love following laws. All you bitter clingers best be quick on the draw. They'll take the weapons from a bunch of nuns. And who cares about all those inconvenient facts, like that a background check wouldn't have stopped the attack. They say the only way to stop a murderous maniac is through some federal legislation, because the liberals always blame the guns. It's a brain-free zone. The problem is always the guns. Gotta go grab those guns. They say we all would be behind the liberals' common sense gun solution, but we're all being played by the evil NRA. But maybe you should look into this thing they call the Constitution. It's a document the founders made. You should have learned about it in second grade, but you were probably sleeping today. They're going after the AR-15 and tomorrow high-capacity magazines. To think they'd stop there would be insanity. You know it ain't gonna be much fun when only the bad guys have guns. That's gonna suck. The bad guys don't get their guns like going to gun shows. No.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
You know the people don't seem to be enamored with your agenda. They know the problem won't be solved with another round of gun control. No, no, no. So go up to Chicago, stay there a bit. Soon you wish you had a concealed carry permit, because the gun laws there ain't worth a bucket of spit. But break into my house and you better run, 'cause I'm a good guy and I have a gun. I'll pop a cap in your butt. Best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Liberals will blame the gun. They always blame the gun. You ain't gonna have much fun if you try to take my gun. It's not the killer's fault. It's an inanimate object's fault. Liberals will blame the gun. They always blame the gun.
Yeah, I had to do that with a little applaud there. It's really a fun video. If you see it, I just bust out laughing. One of my colleagues from Facebook shared with a bunch of us, and he had his little rant. Very diehard Second Amendment. He just like used you anti-Second Amendment. CUNT, folks. That's how we are. You know, it doesn't matter what your belief system is. Always support the right for self-defense. And these clowns who are running for office don't want you to exercise your natural-born rights. That's right, not civil, natural-born. And this is why a lot of these folks don't like it when they try to use their little buzzwords and propaganda, and I love to counter it because that's how I am. So you know what? Don't count a con man. Deep down inside, you know I'm right. Okay, folks, I guess it for now. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to this episode. Plus, feel free and download this throughout your social media network. If you have any questions, comments, compliments, criticisms, love letters, hate letters, or you got something like any articles or information that I may find interesting. However, please use your comments and correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or Scene.life. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck, the number 3, which is all together, LokiLuck3 at gmail.com. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, may your guardian spirits be with you.